Welcome to Suburban Warrior, the podcast that will impact, inspire, and empower you to transform your mindset and become the badass warrior that you are. I'm your host and fellow warrior, Chrissy Pfeiffer, former clinician and corporate marketing exec turned multi-passionate entrepreneur, performance and life coach, and mom to 4 not-so-little warriors. Each week, I will bring you honest conversations with inspiring guests to share their stories of resilience, optimism, success, and simple yet effective strategies so that you transform your thoughts and change your behavior to get the results you want in your life. You will be empowered to take action, warrior up, and believe in you. Let's do this. What's up, warriors? Welcome back to another episode of Suburban Warrior. I am your host, Chrissy Pfeiffer, and I want to thank you again for joining me for another episode this week. And yes, I have another amazing Suburban Warrior here to share her story. But first, I want to thank you for coming back each week and for listening, because it just means that you are finding connection through each of these interviews and taking a nugget of information or inspiration from each person and taking action with that in your own life to really find your own personal power. And that is really what the Suburban Warrior mindset is all about. It's tapping into your personal power and believing in yourself and believing that you can do anything and achieve anything in your life if you believe that you do. So we want to warrior up together. And I really think my guest today, she definitely believes in herself because she has achieved some pretty amazing things in her years. So Laura DiFrancesco is the founder and CEO of Dean Street Law and of Flourish co-working space. She specializes in negotiating billion-dollar transactions and helping companies grow their business. She was the first student in University of South Carolina's history to triple major in 3 years and went on to complete her JD and Master's of Business in Administration in 3 years at Villanova University. That is amazing, crazy. After practicing corporate law for 6 years, she founded Dean Street Law and scaled her business to a team of 8 and 6 figures in just a few months. She founded Flourish co-working space because she wanted a space to work that felt like home, where she could have meetings, record podcasts, and network to connect with fellow entrepreneurs and businesswomen. She spends most of her free time on her farm with her fur babies, enjoying the outdoors and exploring anything creative. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to spend this time with you.
I am so excited to have you here. That is pretty impressive, that academic history that you have. And I can't wait for my listeners to hear your story and your drive and, your really passion to pursue your dreams, because it sounds to me that's really what you had all along. So I definitely want to share your story, and then we can get into some maybe specifics around, I know you are an expert in several areas, but really talking about finances, because, you needed to really understand that in order to build your business and to sustain your business and to be successful. And I think a lot of us and a lot of my listeners could benefit from understanding the benefits of having 2 streams of income, the benefits of investing versus not investing, what to do, how to do it, all of the craziness. But before we get into that, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm Laura DiFrancesco. I grew up in southern Chester County and on a farm with my sisters. We have horses and cows that I love so much, peacocks and pheasants, puppies and kittens. And I was very driven from a young age to be an entrepreneur because I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My mom and dad are both entrepreneurs, and they were taking me on business meetings since I was a little girl with a coloring book and teaching me so much about business. So I really crafted my education to build a really solid foundation in business with international business, finance, and real estate, and then layered on top of that to continue to build my acumen and understanding of the legal world, JD and MBA as well. And then I continued in law, and I am still a corporate attorney so that I could be the best business person that I can be. I think it's such an important foundation of business.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically going into, college and choosing what you wanted to do with your life, you sort of knew going in, you may not have been a practicing, or it wasn't just being an attorney that you wanted to do, but it was being an entrepreneur, and being an attorney was just kind of one step closer to getting you to being a successful entrepreneur.
Right. I was for a long time wanting to become a CEO. And there's really two ways that you can become a CEO. Either you work your way up in a company or you start your own. And I did a little bit of both. I was for a long time considering wanting to become the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And so I wanted to build a really good practice in law, counseling so many different executives and understanding what their problem points are. And then I made a determination that the best route for me as an entrepreneur is entrepreneurship, because if you're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, your obligations are to be in an office or to be wherever the company needs you to be and be catering to investors and employees and all those needs. And I really want freedom in my time and energy and how I pursue my business and develop it. And I don't want to be beholden to investors. So that was really why I decided, rather than to pursue becoming a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, to start my own business.
And at what point do you think that you made that decision? Like, was that when you were working at your corporate career or earlier than that?
I always wanted to become an executive, a CEO, an entrepreneur since I was very little. But that really became much more clear once I was a practicing attorney and was surrounded by so many executives and saw what their lives were like. And I respect so many of them, but it is a very difficult balance because you see the Richard Bransons and the other more creative entrepreneurs who aren't so beholden to investors, and they are putting themselves and their health first. But there's also a really strange dynamic where if you're the CEO, you're expected to be absolutely everywhere and answering to absolutely everyone. And it puts a lot of stress on you, and you're not able to always guide the company in the way that you would like because you're answering to so many people.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it sounds like, to me, when I look through everything that you've achieved so far and your decisions, and even like you said, starting from a very young age, knowing what you wanted, which is, kind of a rare thing for, especially these days, to really know what your dreams are. But you did know what your dreams are. And it sounds like all of your choices have been very intentional, right? And even up till now, you look at opportunities, but you make choices that are very intentional to reach your goal and your dreams. Would you say that's right?
Absolutely. I'm very, very strategic with how I spend my time and my energy and decision making. I think about decisions every which way, upside down and backwards, until I can't think of it anymore and see all of the issues and opportunities with it and make a decision that I feel like is best for me. But there are so many decisions that we need to make in life that you really have to tune in and close out everything else to hear what makes sense for you. Because, the salary of a CEO of a Fortune 500 company and the opportunity and the glitz and the glamour and the press would be incredible. But it really took me honing into what I need and what's important for me. And that's to be able to go to the farm in the morning if that's what I need to recharge, rather than showing up to employees and investors.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we all get there through a process usually of, like you said, really focusing on what our core values are, thinking about, what is our vision and our mission for our life or our business. But you use a word that you said, tune in. You have to really tune in. And I do think, as we both know, in this world of technology and emails dinging all the time and social media, it is really hard to tune in. And it takes work and it takes daily habits. Is there anything that you do on a daily basis, because you have Dean Street Law, you have Flourish that you're building, you're launching a podcast, your Instagram is awesome. If anyone is not following Laura DiFrancesco, absolutely do it because I love your Instagram feed. But I mean, and that's work, right? I mean, so everything that you do takes work and it takes your sitting and it's creative. How do you focus on the tasks that you need to focus on and tune in when needed? What is something that you do? What's a strategy you use?
What you said, we are surrounded by so many dings and messages and influxes of information. And one of the best things that you can do for yourself is do information detoxes. I unsubscribe to emails, unsubscribe to newsletters, don't watch the news. I turn off notifications on my phone. It's very hard. I don't check email every single day during the day, all day. I set specific times to check text messages, to check emails, to check notifications, because you can't be beholden to the world. We are bombarded with information that has never been an issue in the history of time like it is now. And you have to be creating boundaries and barriers around yourself so that you're in a little bubble of sorts, so that you have space to dream and think and grow, because if you're constantly being bombarded, you're going to be compressed.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I'm really impressed, because, time blocking is such a huge part of productivity. Mm-hmm. But and I like I said before, you're a lot younger than I am. So you've had technology probably most of your life. And, for someone to be able to turn it off and only look at it at certain times. And I think that's pretty impressive, but I also think it's so important. And it's a message that I try to get through I do that for myself, but even to my kids, that it's such an important habit to get into, because I do feel like with all of these things and stuff, it's hard to use your imagination. It's hard to have that time long enough to start dreaming, which is really where all of our goals and everything comes from, is that little intuition and inner voice that we need to listen to.
Exactly. And I do a lot of low tech, no tech time in my life. So I have two phones. One's a work phone that has all of the technology on it, and one's a very low tech phone, but it's the newest iPhone. So it's really good at taking pictures because that's important to me. But I mostly keep my low tech phone with me, especially when I'm at the gym, doing yoga, at the farm, or going on walks with my dog. I don't bring my phone at all, so that I have that time that's uninterrupted. When I'm with my horses on the farm, I'm usually not on my phone and don't really have it with me. So having that time without interruption. I personally don't have TV, but that's just because that's not something I value. So whatever it is that you can get rid of in your life that you don't value, that doesn't add value to your life, so you can make it low tech and give yourself room and time to think and grow, that'll really help you in the long run.
Yeah. And it sounds like your time at the farm, being with the horses and being with nature and all of the animals is really like your meditation in a way. I mean, it's the time for you to, it's like it's spiritual. It's up leveling, your thoughts and getting you into that space. Is that correct?
100%. I call it active meditation, because that's the time where my mind is not on my to-do list. It's on my dreams and my thoughts, my big decisions. And that's really important time to spend with yourself.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so important. And that's a real key that I want to get through to listeners, because I do feel we're all in this hamster wheel of life. And, a lot of us have husbands, kids, significant others, family, parents, whoever it is that have demands on our life. But it's so important to actively take the time for ourselves, whether it is a 10-minute meditation in your home or just a walk, going to a farm, hiking up a trail, whatever it may be. I think it's so important. Okay, so you started Dean Street Law, so that is your corporate law firm. And you also just recently started Flourish, which is a co-working space. Tell us a little bit about that, because it sounds amazing.
Thank you. I absolutely love Flourish. Flourish is so much of an embodiment in person about all of what I would love to have in a workspace. So it's lush, There's plants everywhere. It's inspiring, beautiful, feels a lot like home with blankets and candles and light music. And my dog Bear, of course, he's so important to me. But it has all the things that you need, really good internet and Wi-Fi. We have a podcast studio and media studio, space to work at a standing desk or a couch or at a conference table, whichever you need. And it's also available as event space as well. So if you're looking to host a networking event, a workshop, a dinner, or a shower or something, this is a great place for that as well.
That is so awesome. So obviously with this podcast, people will be hearing it worldwide. This is in Chester County, Pennsylvania. But now, okay, so you started these two companies. You're young. It takes money, right? So let's talk about, because I know you do talk a lot about finances, how to fund a business, how to invest. And I think a lot of my listeners can benefit from learning a little bit more about money and the importance of really paying a little bit more attention to it, not just how much, but what to do with it in the right way. So tell me about, how you started your businesses. How did you fund them?
Yeah, I started everything self-funded. I think that's really important for me. I am very conservative with finances, so I think that everybody should do what works for them, but I'm just going to talk about what I believe and what works for me and take what works for you. And so I have been saving for a long time since I started as a corporate attorney, and I made sure that my spending was so well below my needs financially. And so while I qualified for a house that cost more, I bought significantly below that so that I could be putting double that amount of that mortgage payment in a bank account every month so that I could save it up, pay it off quicker. And so that if I ever lost a job, started my own company, I wouldn't feel pressure to be paying a bigger mortgage than I need to, because it's just me and my dog. So I'm very conscientious of spending and making sure that I'm investing in myself and investing in the things that matter and not overspending. And so I was saving for years and saved well over a year of my living costs and, close to a year and a half to 2 years before I really felt comfortable to start my own company. Because I think it's so important when you're starting something not to have an expectation on that company to be supporting you, because then you're not giving your company room to grow and breathe. It's an infant and it needs your support. It can't be supporting you. And then same with Flourish. So Dean Street Law had an incredible first year of growth. And so I really wanted to diversify my income by starting Flourish co-working space, because although I love law and my clients, it's not the best industry to be in for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of changes in artificial intelligence and technology that are going to displace a lot of attorneys, or at least a lot of work within the industry. And then if something were to happen to me, I wouldn't have an income because it's based on my work output. And I needed something else in my life that could help support me in the long run, where it's not dependent on my hour-to-hour exchange of time.
Absolutely. That's really such a great point, because like you said, being an attorney, it is hour for hour, right? Mm-hmm. So with Flourish, it gives you a whole second stream of income, correct?
And I think that's so important. And I love, as women, talking about money, because I just don't think that money and the specifics of it are talked about enough. Second stream of income is so important, no matter how well you're doing with your first stream of income. And eventually I hope to have 3 and 4 and 5 streams of income. My next eventual projects will be real estate investing, so that I have more passive income as well.
Yeah, see, and that's the key, right? It's the passive income, because like you said, with being an attorney, that's not the passive income, but setting yourself up with other businesses that, whether it's real estate, whether it's, some type of side hustle with a multi-level marketing company that you might be passionate about that has products that you're interested in. And, anything. I think a lot of people too think about that whole side hustle as like, oh, is that going to be like, the $1 million dream? But it's not, it doesn't have to be that huge and that big. It's really about just the more you diversify, the more options that you have, even if it's, little chunks coming from a lot of different places each month.
Exactly. It's all pennies adding up to the dollar.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So, and then what about investing? What are some tips that you might have? Like, okay, so you had the money to fund your own small business. Do you have tips for investing that, might help some of my listeners?
Absolutely. I have a very Warren Buffett style of investing. I believe in investing in very well managed companies, and I don't believe in short-term investing. I believe in really long-term investing, and that's more than 5 years. It's more like 10 years and 20 years. So people ask if I follow the stock market, and I hear about it, but I don't follow the day-to-day because I don't think that the day-to-day matters. Of course, my number one principle is buy low and sell high. So, don't buy Apple when you're hearing, oh, Apple's price is soaring and it's soaring and it's soaring. Yeah. That's not the time to buy. And the time to sell is not when the market crashes, right? Because you only actually lose money when you sell it. Otherwise, it's just on the books whether something has fluctuated up or down. And so people that follow the market really closely sometimes get scared, and they actually make the opposite decisions that they should because they're hearing the market is going down, and rather than trusting the swings of the market, because everything that comes down will go up and everything that goes up will come down. It's just natural fluctuations in the market. They pull out at the worst time that they could. So I believe in investing in really good, well-managed companies, not because of a specific product that they do, but you have to really look at the entire piece of it and what's good to invest in for the long term, and then decide how long you want to hold it. And I don't even think about selling companies for a very, very long time. But if you're not really familiar with the stock market, and if that's a lot to handle, exchange traded funds are really good funds to buy because they follow the stock market. And if you invest now, the stock market will hopefully have grown in 20 and 30 years. And so even though it's going to go through its fluctuations up and down in exchange traded funds, if you put the money in, it should be eventually higher as our economies grow.
Okay, I got it. That makes sense. So exchange traded funds. Okay, so what advice would you give to someone who wants to start a small business or, become an entrepreneur, but they don't have the money to start it, or maybe they don't have enough money to start it, or they're scared to use their money to start it, or they need more? Because I think that's probably one of the biggest hesitations. People have ideas and they have dreams and they want to do it, but then they tell themselves the story that, well, of course I'm not good enough and I can't do this, but then it's, I don't have the resources. I don't have enough money. What advice would you give to those people?
Absolutely. I think just like with investing, if this is something that you want to learn about, deep dive into learning about it. And, what I said scratched the surface of what you can learn about investing. And there's so much more to be said and to be learned. But when you talk about saving and investing into your own self and your company, one of the biggest, most important factors that I've learned is to analyze the type of business that you're interested in starting over and over again. Flourish was idea probably over 100 that I've had of different businesses that I could start. Dean Street Law, I've had so many different interests and companies that I could start over time, but I really wanted to start something that was very low entry fee and very low cost of doing business. So Flourish was business too, because it had a huge startup cost of building out the space and then maintaining the space until it becomes profitable. Dean Street Law was business one because the startup costs were $1,500. Right. And I could work out of my home with my computer and I didn't have a staff that I needed to pay for to be able to do the work. The staff came as a result of us getting so much work. So focusing on a company that you can test out in a very low budget way is really important, because you need to test the market. You need to see if it works. I wouldn't have hired the team that I did if the company didn't already pay for that itself.
Sure. And then when you went on to start Flourish and you had to make that initial investment, how did you feel about that? Like, what were your emotions at that time?
I felt pretty comfortable, but I will say that we really undershot the cost of starting Flourish. The construction costs went up, the decorations and decor went up. So we really budgeted like 25 grand to start Flourish, and it cost like 100 grand to start Flourish. So
that's a big over.
Big difference.
Yes.
So, thankfully I do a lot of financial analysis. So when I'm starting a business, I do an analysis for worst case scenario, medium case scenario, and best case scenario. So even though my scenarios were under on the actual cost projections, I had expected it in a way and had the savings for it and was able to cover it anyways. But I think we could have done a lot more research in the financial budgeting and talking to actual co-working spaces and talking about build out costs more so that we had more accurate financial projections. But that's really important that you have that extra cushion behind you so that when things go wrong or things go unexpected or not according to plan, which they absolutely will, you're able
always
to pivot and accommodate yourself and continue moving forward with it. So I was fine with it because I think it's a really important investment, and I think I see the vision for it. So it's just we keep trucking and we keep working, and it is what it is.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that you had like worst case scenario planning, prior, because if you hadn't, that might have caused so much more fear, anxiety, and stress, when that was all happening. And I think that that's huge because it's all perspective, right? And so even though you thought it was going to be 25, even when it was so much more, you had already sort of pre-planned a little bit in your head for that, and were able to handle that and move on. And because of that, it just makes the entire situation better, because I think that can be a really scary thing, right? When people are putting their own money on the line. And I think, again, it's just perspective and the story that people tell themselves, because, if something like that happens and it could go wrong, it could really take someone sideways and they could completely shut down the whole thing and not carry on with their business, as opposed to what you did. You had all of this analysis going into it. You had the pre-planning. And so when things didn't go exactly as planned, like you said, because they never do, you were already there to handle it and pick yourself up and move on to the next day. And here you are, a couple months into your business, and it's a beautiful space, and it's just awesome.
Thank you. And I think it's also really important to think when you're talking about financial planning and startup costs, the startup costs are not what it takes to get to day one and opening. The startup costs are what it takes to get to profit.
Okay, great.
To the point where you're starting to bring in more money than the business is spending. Because if you just think about the startup costs bringing you to day one, you're not going to be able to continue operating through the time period that it takes to continue to generate that income. And I know that seems like something basic, but I think when people are building out their financial models, they don't always think about it that way. And that's the same reason of why when I started my business, I didn't want to expect it to pay for me. I wanted to expect to pay for it because I knew I needed to save up over a year of expenses and living costs so that I could maintain myself while the business grows on its own.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is, I think that's a great point, because again, it's expectation, and going in with the right expectation. Well, Laura, I want to thank you so, so much for joining me today. I love talking to you, and I would love for you to tell all of my listeners where they can find you.
Absolutely. If you have anything that you need with Dean Street Law or anything, any legal questions, I'm always so happy to be someone as a resource for you to call. Even if it's not something that I know, I'd be happy to point you in the right direction. So you can find our website is www.deanstreetlaw.com. And my email, please feel free to email me, is ldfrancesco@deanstreetlaw.com. And we can include this in the show notes.
Yeah, it'll absolutely be in the show notes. You got it.
And then if you'd like to follow Instagram, you can follow at Laura M. DiFrancesco, and that has links to Dean Street Law and Flourish and the Tea and Toast podcast.
Yes, I'm so excited for your podcast, and which is with your sisters, and you girls are all so just beautiful, and you have such great energy. And I think I want to wish you all of the success with that as well.
Thank you so much. And I so appreciate you having me on today. And I hope that it's been valuable for everyone who's listened.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you all again for tuning in and listening to Laura. And you can find me at chrissypiper.com, Suburban Warrior on Instagram, and join our community on Facebook, Suburban Warrior, and comment and jump in because we love hearing from everyone. So thanks so much, everybody. Hope you all have a great day.